All right, that was the last set of 5. Now let's get talking. The last day of 2024. Another year review, man. It's insane how quickly they come around. But here we are again. Like is tradition with me, I sit down at the end of every year, I write down a whole page that you can call a conclusion of everything that I've found this year, everything that I've experienced, all the highlights, all the lowlights, I suppose, as well. Everything that I've learned, I try to put it in a video, although a lot more will go down in the written format in my journal, as I do every year, and I kind of make a bit of a synopsis similar to this, and I try and kind of like precipitate the take-home message for the next year. And so I write a review for the year, and then I write kind of the goals for the following year. And the goals for the last few years have not been like, I want to do this or this. Like before, I would always say that, and I'll fail every time. I've had 220 as a squat goal for a long time, and I still haven't had it. Same with the deadlift and whatever. Like it's all up and down. The effort is there; it's going to be there. So it's going to be to continue to training, and all the rest of it. We'll get into that afterwards. But I'll go month by month this year, and I'll break down exactly what happened and what my thoughts were. And these type of videos I often go back to and listen to, try to get the feeling of what I was thinking at the time, what worked, what didn't. It's another medium that I can use for myself. I mean, this is where the whole channel started, for me to kind of review upon myself, where my mindset was, the feelings and whatnot. A lot of times when you write stuff, you don't really get that emotional response as you do on video. So I think video is another little tool that you can use to really kind of get that passion across. If you think something has worked and you see somebody talking about it passionately, like, damn, okay, so it's really, really hot about this particular topic. So let's just jump straight into it. This year has been obviously very successful for me. Very successful. I'll probably say the most successful so far, which is excellent, and something my cameraman said about my end of year kind of low mood that I experience every year for the freaking last 10 years. He said, I reckon this year you're going to feel quite happy about it all because you've had such a positive year of training. So much positivity has happened. And this is purely just training talking. Obviously, there's a lot of things happening live that make me even more happier. But let's just keep the channel as what it is. It's all about training. So, in January of 2024, it started off with a freaking bang. Literally on day 2, January the 2nd, or was it the 3rd? Something like that. I set a all-time bench press personal record. So I hit a PR of 152.5 kilos. And that was on the back of, I want to say, 5 weeks. 5 weeks from going 140 from my max all the way to 152. And just to give you a bit of context about that, that was on the background of having lots of elbow issues prior to that, probably for 3-4 months. So I cleaned all that up with the pronation, which I'll get into all of that stuff. Cleaned it all up, and I had like this successful period where I was hitting PRs almost every week. Basically, it was like 142, then 145, then 147, the 150, 152. So January, the year started unbelievable with that. I was doing a whole lot of benching, a whole lot of pain-free benching, which is kind of like the driver behind all of that. That was a freaking amazing period. Like, when you start off a year with a PR on the 2nd or 3rd day, things look amazing. And so I just basically continued for the whole of January doing the same thing that I did in December. And what I was doing, and probably at the time was a very much uncelebrated part of the whole progress in the bench press, was the ollie lifts. I'll put here ollie lifts, but I'm not an ollie lifter. This is very much amateur hour. I was doing power cleans and I was doing power snatches, mostly power cleans, and I was basically doing it damn near every day. Doing lots of it. Obviously, it was a lot of technique work. But what I found was that initially I wasn't even doing hook grip. Initially, I was just normal grip like that. What I was finding is that my forearms were getting absolutely lit up. I was getting destroyed, both in the flexors and the extensors, like as you're kind of going through these motions. And so I kind of theorized at the time, but I wasn't really sure whether that had an impact on the bench press, because if you think about what that is, it's like you're going this way, and so it's like a lot of traps, a lot of forearms, a lot of flexion, and then you're kind of dipping underneath, and a lot of like extension of the wrists. And so traps, forearms, all of that was kind of happening. And I reckon, you know, that linked in with some of the pronation and supination work which I was doing. I don't have the hammy here, but you guys know what the thing is. You know, doing a lot of pronation work, arm wrestling work, and a lot of supination work. I was doing that, and all the lifts and that combined made my elbows feel amazing, made the shoulders feel amazing, the traps, and I started benching like a freaking maniac. It was all going well. January was a very much success, and I, you know, when I read it in the journal, like it's all positivity. It was like wherever I turned, it was like, my God, everything's feeling well. And then in February, I tried to PR some of these, some of these lifts. Like obviously, I had a lot of trouble with other lifts. It was a lot of technical work, and so, you know, form breakdown. But what I was really struggling with was with staying upright, really staying upright. And so I kind of implemented. Some of you guys recommended this to me. Implemented overhead squats. I put overhead squats in, and they were so freaking challenging that, like, you know, even an empty bar was absolutely murdering me. One, staying upright is the whole battle. If you lean forward, it's over. And so for every millimeter that you lean forward, it requires like gazillion fold more tension, like in the shoulders, to kind of keep it upright. So I started doing that. I think I got to like 80 kilos or something like that fairly quickly in the overhead squat, because I was already power cleaning and snatching and whatnot. But what I found is that the introduction of the overhead squat absolutely obliterated my benching. My benching suffered, and I started to regress quickly. As the days of the overhead squats kind of piled on, so did my bench struggle really kind of take hold. And so eventually I kind of stepped away from the whole, you know, pushing the bench press as hard as I was. I was hoping for 155. It never came. But around that same period, you know, I had, you know, that was kind of the bench press story. But around the same period, I think it was early February, that I started to play around with 180 kilo AMRAPs. So the 180 kilo AMRAPs is probably maybe the second most successful period for me in this whole year. And it went from February to March. Those 2 months, it was actually three months, February, March, and April, was an incredible period. What I did was I was taking a lot of inspiration from, and I always forget his name, the guy that, bloody hell, always forget his name, the Nautilus machine creator, the guy that, you know, Dorian Yates got a lot of inspiration from him. Basically, it was about intensity training. I forget the bloody name, I always do. And the idea was you train hard, you train one set and you go absolutely balls out, and then you leave it. And so instead of doing 5 sets of 5 or whatever, you do one set to hell and back. You fight like a madman, you rack it, and you piss off. And so that's what I started doing. In February, I started doing that. So I started doing that every third day. I would have a 180 kilo AMRAP. All the other days were very light. Like I would hit 140 kilos for a set of 5. On day 2, on day 1, on day 2, I would hit 160 for a set of 5, and then on 180, I would try and like really push the 180s as much as I can. Initially, I was kind of doing a set of 5. That's kind of where I started, and I thought, okay, that was really tough. Let me try and get another rep next time. And so, you know, in March, I went quite quickly with it. You know, it was like 180 for 8, 180 for 9, 180 for 10, 180 for 11, and then 12, all in the month of March. And quickly, very quickly in this piece, probably around 180 for 7 or something along those lines, I worked out that my upper back was a weakness. You know, just standing there with a freaking barbell in my hands was wasting me. You know, and I remember doing a bunch of tests where I would literally just unrack 180 kilos. Just unrack it, stand. I don't even walk it out, just stand there with 180 kilos. And what I was finding is it was killing me. I couldn't even make 1 minute with 180 kilos just sitting there with the barbell in my hands. I couldn't do it. It was absolutely wasting me. And I was like, what is going on? Like, how can I expect to squat 180 kilos for 20 reps, which is kind of the initial goal, how can I do that when I can't even stand there with the bar on my back for a minute or two? And so then I started messing around with just holding the bar. And then quickly, after a few sessions of that, I was like, man, I just gotta get a thicker back. I need a thicker, stronger back. What I was finding was that I basically wasn't able to keep my hands in this position anymore. And so as the set progressed, my arms would just like fall forward, and my shoulders, my back rack would just give out. And then I would just have this kyphotic posture, and that was it. And then all of a sudden it becomes just this huge, immense battle of the upper back, and then falls over to the lower back, and it just ends up being god awful squatting and just all bent over. And so very quickly in the piece I started rowing, and some of you guys were saying, Ivan, you're not rowing heavy enough. I was doing 60 kilos every third day. So I basically had a program that was day 1, 2, 3. On day 1, I would do the 180s. On day 3, I would do the 180s, AMRAPs, and then I think it was day 1, I would do the rowing and whatever. I just kind of like split it up that way, gun it out. And I feel, in retrospective now that I think about this, yeah, sure, AMRAPs were great. It was a great stimulus, lots of intensity, all of that. But I think the silent ingredient there was the rows. I worked out very, very quickly in the piece that was the rows that was doing all of this to me. It was just basically addressing a glaring weakness that I had in my upper back. And when I started addressing that, the squat started, I basically was able to survive longer in the set and get another rep and another rep. Eventually, it kind of led to April. So let me talk about March. So the rows were excellent. So started in February, this rowing business, continued in March, lots of success in March. But the other thing that I need to mention, it was a big part of this, was side hip work. Lying down, leg abductions like that, standing leg abductions like that with the leg. Before every session I would do that. 5 sets of 30 of these, no weight initially. Then I started putting bands on the squat rack and overloading it a little bit. But it never really progressed to like a huge amount of overload. I realized that my side hips, so, the muscles there, TFL, glute, minimus and medius, was very, very weak. Very weak when you're training mostly with bilateral stance, and you never do any split stance work, you never do running, you never play sports like I used to back in the day. All of that side of your hip starts to get really weak. And so a bit of that work, addressed a huge weakness there, a bit of rowing, addressed a huge weakness there, all of a sudden my squat started to feel amazing. And in April, I was able to hit 180 for 13, which ended up being the most I could do in that period. And I tried several times. So I think between 180 for 12 and 180 for 13, there was, I think, the 25 day period. Whereas some of these other ones prior to that, like, instead of 11 and 10 and 9 and 8, they came quite quickly. I was doing them almost like weekly, if not twice a week, some of these increases. But when I got to 180 for 13, I kept thinking about the upper back business, and I was doing rows, pronated, supinated. I even tried doing some dumbbell rows. That kind of didn't last very long because I started to feel that god awful groin pain that I sometimes feel. When I'm rowing, I spoke about that at the time, like, the sports hernia business. I try to kind of manipulate it, go lower weight, all that. Eventually I just pissed that off. And to address that sensation, which I've had many times before, then I went into like this sit-up period for quite a while to address it, and kind of that's how I addressed that. But that was basically, in April, the most I could do, 180 for 13. So, from January to April, lots of success, lots of goodness. It was just one thing led to another. And during this, period, I think eventually when I really started sending it with the AMRAPs, I let go of the overhead squatting, I let go of the Olympic lifting, I let go of all of that stuff, and solely concentrated on the AMRAPs. I kind of figured that the bench press was kind of exhausted. I started regressing, and I thought, I need to step away from that for a little bit. I've kind of milked all the juice that I could out of it, and so I wanted to kind of move away from it a little bit. And then, this AMRAP period started, and I started having success with that, and I stuck with it. I stuck with it. The 180 for 13 was a pivotal moment for me because I really centered in with the whole upper back training. I mean, now that I sit here, I probably should have just continued with all these stuff as well. You know, the power cleans would have made a lot of sense. With this, is just I wanted to stay away from anything that was exerting a lot of energy, a lot of time, and power cleans were number one, taking a lot of time, and it was a power movement, and you don't want to do power movements mixed in with the AMRAP set program where you're dying every third day. So I removed everything difficult away from the program, and I just solely focused on those AMRAP sets every third day. But in that thinking, in my last hope to kind of progress the 180 AMRAPs, I introduced farmer's carry, and I made a stack of videos about that at the time. I've got my farmer's, they're over there, farmer's handles. Originally, I was using 20 kilo dumbbells, walking around the house, you know, for a minute or two, whatever I was doing. And then I really wanted to overload it, and I started overloading the living hell out of it. I started using 100 kilos per hand. I think I did 140 for 10 steps or something each hand. Really started overloading it, and initially I was like, damn, I'm really getting wrecked from this. Once again, I deviated away from the whole idea of when you're doing AMRAP sets every third day, nothing else can be hard. You have to really just recover for that. And the farmer's carries, I didn't see it coming, but that was absolutely wasting me. And so the farmer's carry, going heavy, essentially killed off that period of AMRAP sets. I quickly started regressing badly, and 180 for 5 started to become very heavy, very taxing, and my squat dropped, man. It started dropping and dropping and dropping, and then when I started to feel that, I was like, okay, I need to stop this, kind of like I stopped bench press, I am regressing now, I need to deload. And so in May, I deloaded. I deloaded for about 2 weeks. I did very little volume, very little work. My squat was 140 kilos for 5. I want to say every day. So I've gone from my AMRAP period being 140 for 5, 160 for 5, 180 AMRAP, day 1, day 2, day 3. And the deload was 140 across the board. So I never did 160. I never did anything above 160, if memory serves correct, and I never did any more AMRAPs. So that's all through May. In June, I came out of it and I started having these ideas about conjugate again. And I was like, sure, I can go back to AMRAPs, but I really, really don't want to do that. Because one thing, in May, I was deloading for 2 weeks, and then I came out of the deload and I got sick. And I got sick pretty bad for 2 weeks. Pretty freaking sick for 2 weeks. I remember it was one of the worst sicknesses I've had in my time. I was sick, febrile for about 7 days. I didn't work, didn't do anything, and so I had a deload. My body just basically shut itself. I must have pushed my limits to the max with this AMRAP period. The deload really just let my body catch up, and everything fell apart, and I had this huge month of nothingness. It was winter in Australia as well, and I thought to myself, okay, once I get better, I cannot go back to balls out squatting again in the middle of winter. I can't do it. The hospital's full of freaking bugs. It's cold, ripping cold air through the lungs. I felt like AMRAPs were for a warmer month. So I came back and I was like, okay, let's entertain the conjugate style and just change something, change the exercise. And so at that time, I bumped into a safety squat bar at the gym, loved it, bought it, and when I got it, I started doing Hatfield squats and all sorts. No, I didn't buy it this year. I had the SSB, but I started the Hatfields for the first time. I'm getting ahead of myself. No, I didn't buy the SSB this year, I don't think. It was last year. But for the first time, I started doing Hatfields. New stimulus, you can overload it, and I did. And I freaking did, man. I went up to 260 kilos for sets of 5 with the Hatfields, very, very heavy. You know, it really makes you feel like you're super strong, but the amount of help you get with the arms is immense. So June was all about variation. So I did a whole bunch of Hatfields, and like I usually feel when I get done with the sickness, I have this feeling like I have this gunk in my chest, like I have to get it out. And so I started riding a bike. And I was riding about 3 times a week, sometimes consecutive days. And that was a good period. I mean, not to think about any heavy lifting at all. Did that, and then I got sick again in July. I'm just thinking now, which sickness period was worse, May or July? 2 sicknesses. Basically, I was sick all of winter. It was brutal. I really copped it in July. Actually, I think the July one was the one I was telling you about. Anyway, in 2 months, I was sick twice, and it was deloading between there, and it was variation, blah, blah, blah. In August, I came out of all of that. The weather started to kind of pick up a little bit. I started to feel a little bit better. And the whole conjugate idea started, and I was like, okay, let me start going back to the gym, start doing things that I'm not really good at. And so I started benching really, really wide. That was the first thing I wanted to do. Horribly weak benching wide. Started with 60 kilos for sets of 5, went to 80, went to 90, and I kind of progressed all the way through. Now I'm like 130 kilos really wide. So like basically the same as I'm narrow. So huge progress there. That started in August. I started doing hack squats. In that month I also did some good mornings. So a whole bunch of variation through that winter period. And I did, I think, about 4 weeks of hack squats in August, and in September I started doing the belt squats. I ended up getting the belt squat machine, amazing machine, unbelievable stimulus. Started doing that, and I started doing split squats as well as warm up, to do that side glute business again. And the 215 PR came as a result of that. So what did I do? Well, a whole bunch of stuff before. Like I never really peaked my squat strength when I was doing the AMRAP sets. Whole bunch of months passed, lots of downtime, lots of weakness, lots of sickness. But then I'd like to think all of that stuff that I did prior contributed to that 215 squat. Yes, the belt squat and the hack squats, they had something to do with it for sure. But it would be foolish for me to say that it's all belt squat and hack squat and nothing AMRAP period at all. So the 215 kg PR came in September. And I remember when I did that, the 215 felt freaking easy. It felt really, really good. It felt unbelievable, and I was expecting goodness after that. My thoughts were kind of progressing. The bench press was flying. Basically, session by session, I was putting either a rep or a set on with the wide bench press. And it got me thinking. I'm like, okay, so this is a really low-hanging fruit. I'm really addressing it really quickly. I know that I'm really crappy with a wide stance squat, like I was with a wide grip bench. Why don't I just go and do some freaking wide stance work? And so I started, thinking about, do I do sumo, do I do squats, sumo deadlifts, or do I do squats, wide stance? And then it kind of occurred to me, let me just take this really, really simple, kind of like I did with the bench press. And I started doing horse stance, where you kind of sit in a really, really wide squat and you hold it. And I did that. And I did that for, I want to say 3 weeks, something like that, most of October. The hips felt amazing, absolutely amazing. And around that time, when I was doing the horse stance, was when I reintroduced rows. So rows had a huge impact in the February, March, April period, AMRAP period. Unbelievable effect to my squats. Started doing rows again, thinking to myself, okay, I did this 215 PR, squat PR. What if I reintroduce the rows again and try to kind of do the stuff that worked before? Weather was starting to warm up and I started really pushing hard again. And then, so I did 4 weeks of hack squats, 4 weeks of belt squats, and then I started doing leg press. And I've been doing now leg press for more than 4 weeks. It's been like 6 weeks, if not 8 weeks. And the leg press period, since November, I want to say mid-November. Yes, about 6 weeks. Since November, I've been pushing leg press, pushing rows as my main accessories to all of my training. As essentially all of my efforts were going into that. Squat volume in all-time low. I'm not squatting much at all. And then in November, 270 deadlift. It came out of nowhere. It felt good. Felt really good. Mostly what felt good was the pull off the floor. So I felt very strong off the floor. Now, the first 6 months of the year, I barely deadlifted. Barely deadlifted. I was doing a whole bunch of squatting, no deadlifting. In the last quarter of the year, so October, November, December, I hardly squatted. Obviously, it's squat every day, so I would hit my singles, but I didn't do much squatting at all. But what I did was lots of accessory work for squats. Like I said, hack squats, belt squats, leg press. That was the volume, that was the squatting part. But what I found was when I linked all of those squat accessories with rowing, my deadlift started feeling freaking amazing, man. Absolutely amazing. And so, as some of you guys would have seen this as it was going by, 270, 275 fell in November, damn near days apart, like twice in a week. In the December came, 280 and 285 came. And I just have been doing the same freaking workout since start of November. So this is 2 months now. I've done the same thing. I have 3 days where I work out, where I really push. All the other days are kind of like really easy days. Similar to how it was with the AMRAP sets period. Day one, I come in and I do my deadlift. Start off with an easy squat, single. Do my deadlift, 1 rep max, pull, or just push as much as I can. Whole stack of rowing, incredible amount of rowing, 10 sets of 10 rowing. Pronated, I do 5 sets. Supinated, I do 5 sets. That's on day one. On day two, I come in and do my leg press and my volume on squats. So lots of volume in squats, 1 day of the week. So unlike what I was doing before, dying with the squat, this is like 100 kilos at the time. It started off being 100 kilos for sets of 5, really wide stance squats. So really lightweight squatting for a bunch of volume, trying to get the hips to open up, trying to get the adductors to open up. You know, if you think about it, in the AMRAP period, you know, I was doing 180 kilos for sets of 10, sets of 13, you know, like pushing the AMRAPs. And now I went down to 100 kilos for sets of 5. You know, that is humongous contrast, but it's a new variation, completely new variation that it was kind of like taxing the living hell out of me. So when I say I didn't do a lot of squatting in the second part of the year, I did, but it was a variation that was using puny, tiny weights. So that November, December period probably goes down as some of the most successful lifting I've done, and probably it's in comparison to the February, March, April period where I was doing the AMRAP sets. The AMRAP sets, dude, were insane, man. Like it was, I don't know, man. Like hips started to feel good because of the side work, because of the rows, side glute work. I could squat like a maniac for huge amounts of volume. That lasted for 3 months. The deadlifts lasted for 2 months. I'm in the midst of it. Maybe I can do something again with the deadlifts. I'll continue to push what's worked, but I'm very well aware that, you know, some of these periods don't last very long. You know, the AMRAP period lasted probably, I want to say, 8 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. And then the body just needed a deload. It needed a deload. I did tinker with things which kind of annoys me. Introducing the overhead squat, introducing the farmer's carry fried me in a period where it was winter, sickness around. I really burnt myself out. I really tried to get the 180 for 14, for 15. I wanted to keep going. Essentially, I just ran out of steam, and I needed to do a hard deload, hard reset. And the following couple of months, I didn't do much at all of anything. You know, May, June, July nothing really happened other than a whole bunch of variation. In August, I started to kind of pick up again. I go through that sickness period and I start to kind of ramp up again. And then, September, came the squat PR, and then October, November, December, very, very good deadlifting. So seems like I've got, 6 to 8 weeks of really hard training underneath me, and then I need to change. Now, what I've learned from this whole year is that you can't, even though you want to, you can't expect to continuously stack your chips in the right direction. You might be feeling freaking amazing. Everything's going great. You're setting PRs left, right, and center, and then all of a sudden, you hit a freaking brick wall. He comes out of nowhere. You've changed nothing. The AMRAP period, I kind of screwed myself. I did the AMRAP, the farmer's carry, and that probably kind of was the last straw that kind of really pushed me over the edge, and I couldn't recover anymore, and I had to do a hard reset. With this December period, I don't think it's over, but I have not changed anything. I'm continuing to do the exact same thing until my body really says, okay, you've had enough, and I start regressing. When I start regressing, it's time to deload. There's probably smarter ways to do this, but I just want to squeeze all of the juice out of it. And then when I feel like I can't progress anymore on the deadlifts and the leg press, boom, I'll change. But right now, the way I kind of think about it is the leg press is improving session, if not session, but session week by week, something like that. So when that starts to feel stale and I start to regress on that, I will know that it's time to stop that and maybe go back to the belt squat again, change the stimulus altogether, and just stop doing that for a little bit. Maybe another 4 weeks, do maybe the hack squats, belt squats, run the whole system again since October. I started the hack squats in August even. So that's kind of the plan. I did 8 weeks of AMRAP squatting, way too long. The moment you start to feel like you're regressing, boom. Don't try and add another thing on top and try to survive. Don't. Stop it. Do something else. Build something else from ground up. Come back to this second time. But, if I just continued my leg pressing, continued my squatting volume with the wide stance squats, continued deadlifting, and now I'm like, oh God, I'm not improving. Let me put another thing on top to try and, make that spark go again. Too much. You'll burn out and screw yourself over. So you need to swap something out when things stop. And that's kind of the message for me to this year. I've had unbelievable periods of training. I've learned stuff. I kind of know how to progress from now on. I've found a cohort of exercises which work really well for the deadlift. I know how to get the best out of my squatting. The hip pain has been completely addressed. I've not had hip pain all year. Hip pain I've kind of mastered. I know it's all about the side glute abduction. You do that, you do split squats, you do that kind of stuff, boom, hip pain disappears, you can squat. If you want to feel good with deadlifting, rowing, same with squats, rowing for deadlifts as well, and just use machinery, leg press, hack squat, belt squat, use these machines to hit the quads, hit the pushing muscles, use the machine to lock you into that pushing biomechanic rather than always using free weights and always going to that pull. I'm using a machinery to learn how to push, and then using the hack squat, leg press, all that stuff that I mentioned, mix that with the rows, all of a sudden I can push the deadlift off the ground and get that pop off the ground. If I improve that initial couple of centimeters on the deadlift for me, this is where I get these gains. I've basically just improved. I probably had the 285 in me for a while now. I just couldn't get that bar off the ground. I had a severe weakness getting the weights off the ground, and probably that severe weakness biomechanically was also muscularly weakness in my traps, lats, quads. And you do all of these things, you put it all together, and all of a sudden you start to see translation from the muscle world to the biomechanics world. And you're like, okay, so if I improve my row and get really accustomed to rowing and pushing with my legs through these damn machines, all of a sudden the deadlift starts to move. So that's 2025. That's my review off the top of my head and from here. This is going down as a very, very positive year. So I'm going to ride some positive things for the review of this year, and I just hope it continues. I mean, this year started incredible. Hopefully, I start with the same momentum, and I just keep some of these lessons from this year in my mind, and don't get too eager, too hungry to prolong some of these positive periods. It's okay to stop, rejig, do something else for a little while. You know, get better at something that you're not good at, and that is probably a nice way to summarize it all. Find things in the gym that you are not good at, machine or not machine, and get it better. It's low-hanging fruit. It is super easy to address, and when you do address that, all of the primary stuff will go up as well. We all have these things in our body which we suck doing. There's parts in our body that is not very good, and nobody likes to train this, but when you start to do the wide stance squats, which are vomit central for me, still I can't bear myself to watch that crap. But when I do that, hips feel good, adductors feel good, side glutes feel good, quads feel good, everything feels good. When I do rows, my back feels good, my core feels good, feels strong, I feel just stacked because I'm dressing the weakest part of that anatomy. And then you kind of, when you go back to the stuff you really love doing in your really hardcore freaking set up for, and this is what your biomechanics wants you to do, bang, you just pull that shit off the ground. But the low-hanging fruit is where you got this from. That's kind of the take-home message from me. Guys, if you've made it down to all the way to the end of this video, you've probably watched a large part of this journey this year. I want to thank you for that. Thank you for the support. The YouTube channel is still around. I'm still going. I'm still squatting every day. Still enjoying it. I had a couple of dark periods this year where I was considering quitting. It might come. I don't know. Right now, I still love this stuff. I still love to come every day and train. I still love to squat every day. I still love to go through the process. It feels freaking amazing to kind of feel like I've got a mini project every single day. So I'll continue to do this until I feel it in my heart that it's time to stop, and when that happens, I'll piss off with something else. But as it stands, I'll continue to do that. I hope you guys have also a very good year next year. Hope you guys celebrate tonight. Have a couple of drinks for me as well. Stay safe, and I'll guess I'll catch you guys next year for some more gains and some more of the journey. You know, it's not fair to say for more highs, because we all know each of us are going to have some good periods and some bad periods. So bring it on, bring it all on, and I'm excited. I'm excited to feel the uplifting nature of what January is. December is kind of like, January brings inspiration, motivation, clean slate, hope. That's a very strong word. Brings hope, a new start. It's all arbitrary, but these are some of the emotions that I feel in January. So tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to feel happy as I'll never feel all year. Yeah, I'm in a good space right now. So hopefully the training continues. Hopefully I can hit that 290. Hopefully I can hit 220. Hopefully I can do many good things. But most of all, and most importantly, hopefully everyone is safe and healthy, so we can come in and enjoy some of these side quests that we have. I mean, this lifting stuff is fantastic. I love it. It's a beautiful journey that I've been on. But let's not kid ourselves. All of this really is a side quest. The main quest is what's inside that house for me, the family, the kids, those smiles for Christmas, New Year's, the prezzies. That is the most beautiful part of life. So if that all goes well, this has a good chance of going well. And yeah, we need to make sure we have our priorities set right. So even if we have crappy days in here, when you walk into the house and see those kiddies smile, it's a beautiful thing. So I'm kind of making a long-winded thing here, but have a good one, guys. Have a happy new year. For those of you guys that are celebrating Christmas on the 7th, happy Christmas. I'll probably make a video around then as well. I'll see you guys in next year. I'll see you guys tomorrow, but it's going to be the new year. Peace out, guys. Appreciate you. Catch you next one. Peace out.